In this short recording, I want to go through how I've approached inside of Maui Mastermind, my business coaching company, to think through how we're going to respond as a company to what's going on with the coronavirus and COVID-19 and really the strong emotional reactions that are going on in the marketplace, some of which is warranted and some of which has been hyped up and made hysterical by how the media is fanning the flames. So I came in here this morning. Things changed greatly over the weekend. Last week I thought I had a response for how our company was going to handle it, but things did intensify over the weekend. So I came in here today, and the first thing I did was I sat down with a sheet of paper, an 11 by 17 sheet of paper, and I carved out two halves of the equation, the internal and the external. Internally, there were 4 question lines or lines of inquiry that I know I needed to think through in a structured basis, and I needed to talk with my key leaders about these same questions. So the first line of inquiry, item number 1, worries, fears, and anxieties. What is my team's internal dialogue right now? What's on their mind? What are they scared about? What are they worried about? What do they feel anxious over? I need to know that. I need to be able to put into language what is it that they're saying in their own heads. For example, are they saying things like, well, David, we do events. Are you going to ask that I get on a plane and go travel to an event? I'm scared to do that. Or, hey, David, my kids' schools were canceled, so I now have all my kids home with me. That's going to adjust things. Are you going to help me account for that? Or, hey, David, are we going to get a mass number of clients who cancel because of this? And does that mean we're going to have layoffs or cutting vendors? Or how does this impact me? Those are all valid concerns that they have, right? And I have to just be able to list them. The first step is just to get clean on what is it that's on your staff's minds and hearts. What's scary to them? What's the words that they're saying to themselves in the quiet moments in the day? Second thing, what are the facts? The second line of inquiry is I get the facts. And I use the word facts in quotation marks. So first of all, what are the reputable sources of information that I'm going to stay on top of? Who else do I want to stay on top of these sources of information? Information sources that are credible would include things like the cdc.gov, or if I'm a regional business, I might pay attention to 1 or 2 different state health commissioner offices, or if I'm in a local geographic area, I might be a county health officer that I'm paying attention to their website. If I'm paying attention to websites like the newspapers in my area or national news, I'm going to make sure I don't just pay attention to the headline. A lot of times headlines are designed for you to click, as opposed to the information that's in the article might be framed differently than the sensational headline to get you to click on it. Even in some of the most reputable places, they still concern themselves with clicks. I get it. I'm a writer for Inc.com, and I know that the headline, the same article with 2 different headlines, one gets 1,000 people to read it, the other gets 150,000 people to read it, and it's tempting to make the sensationalist one, and there's an inherent bias that way. But when I see things, I'm going to make sure I look at what are the source materials they have. What is the article really saying, and what are their sources for what that is? Is it a survey put out by an industry association that might have a bias or an agenda? Or did it come through a reputable university that did some real research? Can I go back to that source material? What's my formal schedule for checking in? There's something that happens in a crisis situation or happens in a really intense, high-stress situation. We call it cognitive lock. Cognitive lock. And cognitive lock basically happens when we get this tunnel vision. So in this situation, we make a decision. This is what we're going to do. And we get this cognitive lock, but we're not questioning what we're going to do. We don't revisit those decisions when the circumstances have changed. So under the second line of inquiry where it says, what are the facts? I do believe you need to have a formalized check-in schedule. Hey, we're going to step back and have a conversation about this 2 weeks from today, 1 week from today. Of course, if things change faster, you can always have that conversation sooner, but you need to make sure you have that formalized checkpoint. Otherwise, I watch businesses that made a great decision 2 months ago stay with it too long, and because of that, they go right over the edge of a cliff because of that tunnel vision, that cognitive lock. The third line of questioning is we call scenario planning. And scenario planning is you basically gaming things through. For example, we spend quite a bit of money on our online marketing. We might be spending anywhere from $12,000 to $18,000 a month, depending on the month, for our online marketing. And in our world, that's a fairly large line item for our marketing budget. One of those right now happens to be paying a certain amount of money for our SEO outside company that we work with. Well, we made the decision this morning that that particular marketing tactic we're going to put on hold for 30 days and revisit it then. Why? Because we think that with all that's going on, that we can save or bank that budget and reuse it later on. In terms of our pay-per-click, we went through and decided here's what we're going to pay very close attention to. If we see these scenario things go on, we're going to double down and increase our ad buy. If we see these things go on, we're going to decrease our ad buy. If we see these things go on, what we're going to do is we're going to shift from this keyword group over to that keyword group. In other words, we just thought this thing through to make the most of the situation. So we're going to do scenario planning. We talk through for us about live events that are going on, right? The CDC over the weekend changed completely its best practice recommendation for live events. It used to be if the groups were under 250 and were following good, safe hygiene practices, they said go ahead and continue going with that as long as it's not a high-risk population. Well, they've changed that to groups of 50. Well, our events are well over 50, but generally under 250 people. That's changed now. So we're going back out and communicating with our clients about that one of the upcoming events will be shifted and changed to making it virtual. We have on the calendar this week to figure out what are the best ways to creatively make the most of a remote event like that. And then we also know that future events we're going to just pay attention to and do our planning and later on make some decisions down the road when we have more information as we get closer to them. Scenario planning might be for your business about how you're going to do scheduling. What happens if schools don't reopen in 2 weeks in your area? How do you deal with if you had a major customer defection? Where are the opportunities for you to double down and find more ways of serving your customer base right now? So under scenario planning, there's a subset here that's probably the most important subset of your scenario planning. So we'll call this the STAR area. And the STAR area is for you to think, what is the real opportunity for you here? I'll do some separate recordings down the road for you about ways that clients of ours in our coaching program are taking the very best of the situation or making the very best of the situation to grow their businesses. Because there really are some opportunities out there. And we can look for ways to play defense. And you know what? We might be able to ride through the situation. Or we can look at not just playing defense, but how can we go on the offense in this situation? How can we take what's going on here and harness it to better serve our marketplace and at the same time to really grow and scale the company? Because there really are some opportunities there. The fourth line of inquiry internally is, how do we plan to communicate things with our team? How do we get our team to help? How do we get our team to use this moment in time to make the most of it? How do we enroll, engage, and empower our staff with that part? So those same 4 lines of inquiry, starting off with 1, what are their worries, fears, and anxieties, their internal dialogue? 2, what are the facts? 3, scenario planning. 4, how do we plan to communicate this and engage, involve, and empower our team around this part? Those same 4 lines of inquiry internally, we can do the same things externally when we think about how it affects our customers and our marketplace. What are their worries, fears, and internal dialogue? What are the facts that they need to be aware of with them and that we need to be aware of about them? What sources of information should we pay attention to? What should we filter out? The third external one would be what are the scenario planning things that they need to be thinking about and we need to be thinking about with respect to our customers? Especially that STAR area of how could we just supercharge how we serve our customer or client base? How can we take this opportunity and make their lives better? What are the real opportunities for them and how can we help them harness those opportunities? Don't just think about your opportunities. Think about the opportunities inherent in the situation for them. And then finally, how is it that we're planning on communicating with our customers or clients? Are we going to be writing an email? Are we going to be having a series of phone conversations? Are we going to be setting up some video-based conversations? Is there going to be a schedule of communication we're going to be doing through our social media? How is it that we're going to step that part?